So, good day, everyone. Welcome to another yet exciting edition of NDT Talks, where we bring together some of the brightest minds from across the globe to discuss, debate, and decode the world of non destructive testing. Today's session is titled UT Across Borders: How Standards, Expectations, and Certifications Vary Around the World. Whether you are a technician, a QA leader, or an NDT enthusiast, trying to understand how ultrasonic testing practices shift from country to country, this discussion is for you. We are thrilled to be joined by a powerhouse panel today. Mr. Justin Cavanagh, Managing Director at IMIS Group at Cavanagh Industries with over 20 years in UT, from conventional to advanced inspection across high risk industries. Mr. Sandeep Murjani, Regional Director at the Phased Array Company, bringing deep experience in both standard and customized UT solutions across India, Dubai, and Southeast Asia. Mr. Paul Holloway, President of Holloway NDT, a P engineer and UT Level 3 from Canada, known for R&D innovations, global patents, and his popular UT YouTube channel. Mr. George Shields, co-founder of International Testing Services, a PCN Level 3 with hands-on experience in phased array, TOFT, and quality system oversight across critical sectors. And leading this dialogue is our moderator, Mr. Eddie Pompa, a 30 plus year NDT veteran, educator, and advocate, currently shaping future professionals and supporting key NASA projects at Astrion. So I want all of you to take as much as notes you can take from this Power Pack session. Also, our next panel discussion details will be all available on our LinkedIn channel, so make sure you follow us there. Link will be available in the chat box. So let's get started with this Power Pack panel discussion. Over to you, Eddie.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, it's been looking forward to this. Looking forward to having this conversation, meet some new folks here. So we'll just jump right into it since we've got all the introductions out of the way. So, guys, we're going to start off with the first question. It's kind of a field-related question. So the question is, what's the most surprising, unexpected UT-related challenge you faced when working in another country? Any thoughts on that? No?
You wanted to go
Maybe
first?
a local practice? Yeah.
Yeah, so mine's more of working with a code. So in Australia, we work quite heavily with, ASME codes. We've got Australian standards, and more recently, we're using the ISOs because all of our Australian standards have been superseded. So we decided to adopt the ISO codes due to a cost, and um, so we get to come across a number of different standards because we're basically using everyone's. But D11 was an interesting standard to me because I'd never come across it in sort of 20 years. And when I got to use it, um, it sort of messed with my head a bit. There was these it's comparative as opposed to use comparative of reflectors to judge whether the indication's in or out. And I'd never come across that before. It was completely foreign to me at the time. Whereas we had all of our standards are, your size by height, length, and defect type before it becomes rejectable or admissible. So that was quite interesting to me, and the way that they did it. So not saying it's right or wrong, but just saying it was definitely different to what we come across
Different.
normally. Yeah, but I can
I
see the
guess,
advantages of it.
yeah. So I guess maybe I'm wondering if the question is more related. I mean, it's a great answer, right? You're dealing with D11. Maybe you had never done it before, but I guess maybe you're thinking of more of a cultural standpoint, maybe the practices that are or take place in the other countries, maybe where you visited.
Yeah, that one's a little bit of struggle for me because I haven't visited too many places that are a lot different to us, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I can admit on this one. I agree, Justin, because after having lot of exchanges with the people who are really working on field in India, and suddenly when I started to interact with some of my field experts in Dubai, there was indeed at some places cultural shock. For example, I know a gentleman from, I think it's not very long back, maybe 3 years back. So he's a very well-known personality in India for refinery jobs. And it was a very basic job, you can say thickness measurement. He was level 2 at that time. Now he's quite let's say level 3 and handling a team of many people. So when he visited Dubai for the first time and he started working following all the criteria, he was qualified, etc., etc. But when the customer, the supervisor came and started asking how you are doing, etc., and he was surprised to know that the end customer has demanded PCN certification, and boom, it was
Hmm.
he was ASNT level 2 at that time, and it was the reality. And so it is, I would say it is more of awareness, let's say, but still from his perspective it was the same application, same kind of customer, and the let's say the reporting formats. This customer in Abu Dhabi was expecting a lot of detailations as compared to
Hmm.
what he used to do. So there are when you cross the borders from even in few hundreds of kilometers, it is really difficult. So you have to be very well aware.
Okay. Okay. Paul, do you have anything?
Well, I've done work in other countries, but the I've actually said no to working in other countries more than I have worked in the other countries, and the most recent one was because of you doing your due diligence ahead of time and making sure that if there's any paperwork that needs to be done, is taken care of. And
Mm-hmm.
the amount of steps that it appeared that I was going to have to take in order to get this done was insurmountable. In NDT, we're not often privy to like, hey George, how would you like to go to oh, I don't know. You and I got to go to Timbuktu, and we got to leave tomorrow, right? Like that's what we get. That's the phone call we
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you go, oh, okay, I happen to have nothing to do tomorrow. I'd like to work with George. Super cool. And then you check out, what does your government say about working in Timbuktu or wherever the company or country ABC? How many do we need a work visa? How long can we stay in the country? What's the consulate like? Right. And you got to make sure you check all the boxes, right? Because you don't want to get over there and find out that like, oh, now you're here illegally and we're going to have to put you somewhere. So we get those phone calls all the time in NDT, like,
Yeah.
go here
Yeah.
now. And I've said no more times than I've said, probably 5 times as much as I've said yes, because you check the boxes and you go, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this. They drive in the other side of the road. Even if I was able to go, they want me to rent a work van, and I'm supposed to have fall arrest training that's only good, that's from which jurisdiction do I need? Yeah, forget it. I'll just stay
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Okay, that's a fair point, right? I know that we do get those calls like that, and it makes it challenging. And it's funny because when you go overseas like that, if you don't do it often, you tend to forget to check those boxes. You really need to, right? You need to make sure that you're in compliance and you don't get arrested for doing the wrong for doing those things. So cultural awareness is important.
So
Yeah, George, did
I
you?
just
Go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say one more thing about that, about
Mm-hmm.
checking all the boxes. I just went to Vietnam, and uh, I just I'm just a Canadian. I just go places and see people. And that I hadn't been to Asia too many times. I'd been to Thailand and then once to here to Vietnam. And at the last minute, I said, wonder if I'm supposed to have anything, like a visitor visa. And of course, I left it to the last second because I'm a knucklehead. And sure enough, I found out that you had to have a piece of paper, signed by had to have a number on it and everything. So fortunately, with some internet sleuthing and some really last minute stuff, there are people who are awake all day that will take your $100 and fast track something through. Normally it's like a 3-week wait, but if you pay an extra $100, you can get a rate. So so we've got how many people in the meeting right now? Heads up, if you have to go anywhere, don't do what I did. If somebody calls you to, make sure you do your due diligence and make sure that if there's something that you need when you get to the border at the airport, that you have that. It was really cool. When I got to the airport, there was somebody waiting for me with my name on one of those signs. Right? It was the first time.
Those are cool. Those are cool.
They said, come here. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he handed me the blue piece of paper and he says, you have special lineup. And we went over this way. I got through right away. It was fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, George, did you have something?
No, not really, to be honest. I think the guys have really covered it quite well. I think we're quite lucky, to be honest. Well, certainly me, I'm probably the youngest, although maybe Justin is about the same age as me. I don't know, but we're obviously grown up. We're in a time now where the world's a lot smaller. Information can be passed around quite quickly. I mean, Paul's a good example, probably. I've seen some sort of comments, I think, from one of my old colleagues, John O'Shea, asking about the AWS code. Paul's got a great video explaining the AWS code, which for guys like me, if we are looking at the ISO standards, that's a lot of my background's that. When you look at ASME, AWS, even the way the standard's written, never mind the context, they are totally different, even documents to deal with. So those are challenges. And obviously, I mean, NDT guys, it doesn't matter where you're from, right? I think we all speak the same language technically. We're quite a unique small breed, shall we say. But definitely the standards can be quite some distance apart, and quite rightly so, I suppose. But
and I think you bring up a good point, George. I think we kind of segue right into the next question, and I think Justin kind of answered this question earlier. So let's just go with this, right? So I'll let you continue with your statement, perhaps. But the question has to do with standards. How do they diverge at any point in your hands-on experience? Maybe regarding procedures, inspections, scopes. The scope of inspection itself, or maybe how you get the job done. Do you think that there's any point where those might be the same, or maybe the differences between these, the most notable differences?
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's interesting. So, Justin, obviously, with everything going on in Australia, with their standards superseding, do you have any preference, like when you're looking at the rest?
I'm currently, I grew up on the Australian standards, right? Which I don't know where I'm assuming they've derived off something, right? And I would probably say some of your American standards are where they've been derived from. So this changeover to ISO is quite foreign to me because it's far more complex, particularly around mag particle and some of the other ones. But I'm finding that. But generally, everything else that I've worked to, it seems to sort of gel up. Calibrations are similar. There's idiosyncrasies within them, but they're similar enough that you can understand why they've done what they've done and they're using what they're using. Some of the hole sizes, when you compare the differences, there's a slight change there, but not that much that it would be a drama. So, to me, it makes a lot of sense. Most of them do.
Okay. Sandeep, perhaps?
Yeah, I certainly agree. The ISO 9712 is in trend, and the people, let's say, from Indian perspective, dependent on the industry or let's say the customer's requirement, we follow ASME codes, we follow DIN, we follow nowadays ISO. So one very good example is I was with a customer and we started simply following what we used to do is ASME based TGV calibration, and suddenly that we came to know, no, we have to do deck. So it's how you are open at the site and how you align to the testing requirements. And yes, the 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 requirement certainly diverge from industry to country, let's say.
Okay. Okay. Did we lose Paul? Is he still here? I
No,
didn't see him on the
I'm
screen.
still here.
Is here.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm still
Okay.
here.
All right.
I actually, this is a question for Justin. You had mentioned that when you were doing the AWS stuff, that was you hadn't seen too many like amplitude-based criteria before, and in North America, it's almost all of what we
All
do.
of them.
So I'm interested to see how the AS, I believe they're AS, right? Your standards in Australia,
Yeah.
how they
Yeah.
get away from, because using a non-amplitude based, like a fractional mechanics based, if you're trying to find the height of stuff, that's the best way to do it. But it's so complicated.
Yeah, it's so sorry, just to clarify what you said again, Paul. Yeah, a lot of the stuff I do is refineries operating plant that's already been manufactured, and a large amount of it's being manufactured, I think one of the plants is 50 years old now. And so a large amount of the stuff we're doing is crack detection rather than looking at new welds. So um, you're doing a lot of sizing, trying to understand what the defect is and that sort of stuff. Um, it was definitely cool when it was just comparative and reflective heights. I was like blown away by that because um, when I sort of understood what the standard was for, and it was mainly around new welds, it was like, oh, cool. For a technician, it's just like, oh, it's this high, you can reject it. Great, move on. I was like, oh, this is so much less stress on the brain, and I can see why they do it. It was like, oh, cool. Okay, yeah, it's over that height. Excellent, reject it. Move on to the next weld. I can imagine you could cover a lot of work that way.
Yeah, it's not the most accurate way to do things. I think all of us here probably understand the physics of NDT enough to know that if that reflector tilts a little bit, the amplitude goes way down. It's still the same size. It just doesn't reflect as much sound. However, I'm not going to be the cheerleader for a workmanship criterion and stake my career on basing things on amplitude. However, we don't have an epidemic in industry of things falling for because we use the wrong amplitude. So it doesn't work very well, but it works well enough.
Yeah, look, and I think that's it. Someone's obviously put some work in there prior to that. Like I wasn't involved in writing that code, but you could tell that they've done work and you could tell that it made sense.
The AWS code in Canada, we diverged from AWS. We used to Canada has its own welding code. It's called W59, CSA W59. CSA is Canadian Standards Association. And it followed very closely AWS D11 since we started it. And then in 2018, we diverged. We offered the ability to do a proper TCG rather than just comparative amplitude to the whole on the IW block. And when we were going through that exercise, we did some research and what have you. And that AWS code, the way everything's written, to do everything sizing on the one hole in the IW block, and then having the different levels, A, B, C, D, that goes back to 1969, which is which made it at the time, almost 50 years, right? 1969 to 2019 would be 50 years, right? So you're talking about, like, look how much has changed in UT. In 1969, there wasn't a whole lot of field operators doing field NDT with oscilloscopes. And 50 years later, we've got phased array, TFM, plane wave, PCI, all sorts of crazy stuff. And we still have the meat and potatoes of that document. In fact, back then it was called AWS D10. So I can see, especially if you've grown up with it, then it's a thing and that's what we do and whatever. But if you hadn't seen it before and you uncovered this in the jungle and you opened it up, you go like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I know that feeling.
So it's probably about time that that sort of gets transitioned.
I actually think they revised it not long after I used it, to allow you to use a side drill hole to utilize phased array for your calibration.
They do. That was in a normative annex. I can't remember what number it was, or what letter. But the acceptance criteria that they use was irregardless of the part thickness. I'd have to double check that, but it didn't really follow from the logic that was in the regular part of the code. So in Canada, we did things differently. We still use the same hole size. So we use one, how in an ASME inspection, you use different hole sizes or like different notch sizes, right? Depending on thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So we kept with the structural side of things where we just use one hole size. But we vary the level just like they used to. If you have a thin weld, you're only allowed little stuff, right? And if you have a bigger weld, you're allowed bigger stuff.
Okay. All right. So sorry, I had some issues. I'm not sure it was just on my end. I was missing some of those things. So I think we've gotten everything regarding that topic from everyone. I'm going to skip ahead to another question here. It seems to kind of feed into what we're talking about here. We're seeing an increase in guided wave EMAT full matrix capture things that
Eddie?
nature. And are there any consistent standards, they're being up to what we're doing these days? What's your experience with that?
Hey, Eddie, we lost you there for a bit.
We lost you, yeah.
You want to, Eddie, can you copy paste that into the chat?
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard something about EMAT and
Here we go. Okay, so I'll read this out loud for everybody. We're seeing an increasing use of guided wave, UT, EMAT, full matrix capture, and more. Are there consistent standards being applied globally for these emerging methods, or is adoption still very region-specific with procedures being approved case by case? You're up, George.
Thanks for that, Paul. Yeah.
You said so you're up.
Well, I was thinking. Yeah, to be honest, we are sort of branching from sort of conventional into a lot more phased array. My background's sort of oil and gas and offshore wind energy, and more of the sort of tier one suppliers for those projects are wanting us to go fully phased array, with even things like MPI getting replaced with eddy current array and stuff. So you're just in one single pass with a sort of rover unit. So it's really fast. And to be honest, that the standards agencies all around the world, it would be tough to keep up, even if they were sort of really flexible and dynamic organizations, but they obviously tend to not be, just with the nature of their business, I suppose. So it's a tough one. And you'll probably see it, Paul. I know obviously your background a bit more than the other guys, but it's all the sort of advanced methods are sort of case by case. You know, there's a product, put some defects in it, let's test it, let's make sure we've got coverage, or we get 80 to 90% of those defects. So, and to be honest, with the nature of our work, it tends to be integrity obviously based. So yeah, I don't see any massive shift away from that, at least until the methods and specs mature a bit. I don't know if that answers that question, but
so yeah, I got the same feedback there, or the same feelings. I feel like, yeah, George, that is the largest water bottle I've ever seen.
sorry, yeah. I've just finished testing some welds, so
it looks as if you took the giant water bottle off of the cooler and you're just drinking straight out of it.
yeah.
Holy mackerel. Okay. So I've got kind of the same experience. My feeling with the new technology, it's really fascinating and useful. However, I believe that it's pushed first by the instrument manufacturers in order to sell a shiny box. And I don't mean that in like a down way. I don't mean to be insulting. And it does sell a nice box, and it is cool. It's very effective. However, it takes the codes a long time. So what you end up with is a tool that can do inverse wave extrapolation, some sort of cool thing, but you have nowhere to apply it. So everything would be like a non-code inspection until such time as the code catches up. And code committees tend to be run by 50 or 100 people. If you can imagine, there's how many people we got here? 50 something people, okay? So everybody in this chat, imagine that we're having a tug of war, but we don't have like 50 people on this side and 50 people on this side, because I want to go a different direction than Justin and Sandeep and George and Eddie. Yeah. So imagine like a 50 or 100 pointed star, and each of us are pulling on a rope, and there's a flag in the middle, right? Balancing over top of a target. And each of us are pulling as hard as we possibly can in our own direction. The flag doesn't move. So the larger these, no wonder it takes, the AWS committee 50 years to change anything, or the ASME committee a long time, because everybody wants a little piece, right? And decision by committee takes a long time. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah, agreed.
I agree. I think, and one thing, when you said these 50 or 100 people on the committee, it answers the second part of the question. So these people on the committee will obviously be from different regions. So it's absolutely the acceptance is from one region to different other region is different. Even though there is a procedure that is approved, even though there are companies who will prove the application on field defect detection, but it is case by case. And one point, I'm not sure if you ever faced this, but I have personally faced this. So it was only let's say rejected by a level 3 because he was not very well versed with TFM FMC, but the job was very well done. So it is human and region specific and project specific. If we add the third, let's say, aspect of it, not only region specific, case by case, but also human specific. What do you think?
Worldwide, everybody has like when you get your NDT certification, does everybody have to sign a code of conduct from from the certification body?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
PCN do, yeah.
Yeah.
PCN do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I'm trying to dig up mine here in the background, but because there's some precise wording on it. But
it's not on the wall, Paul.
Sorry, what's that?
It's not on the wall. Reading it every day or
No.
something? No.
No, it's not. So I think people have sort of oh, there it is, right there. I found it. It says Paul's. There it is. Code of conduct. I won't share it on the screen because the writing's too small. But basically, it says that you can only do things that you're trained to do and competent to do. So that's good to know. I mean, everybody, I think most of the standards are based on ISO, right? And the Canadian is 48.9712, which the 9712 is from the ISO bit, and we basically adopted ISO full tilt. So and I don't think enough people remember that they've signed this, because they'll get into situations where, oh, you have an eddy current ticket. Great, I do have an eddy current ticket. Go ahead and do remote field testing on that bundle. And that's just not something I'm going to do.
Maybe you're not hearing. I feel like audio seems to be not working, so I'm asking you to check the chat. Sorry about this, guys.
Is it Eddie that can't hear? Can everybody hear me, or did I just chop out?
We can hear you.
No, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it might be Eddie. Say, Eddie, problem is on your end. Anyway, does anybody want to add anything to that? Like, everybody has signed a code of conduct, but we don't really remember a lot of the 10 points that are in there, right?
Sorry, guys.
It's like a doctor's oath that every UT inspector should remember that. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real definition of competence, right? You know where the limit of your competence is, and you know when to ask, oh, wait a minute, I'm not really sure here. But I mean, to be honest, I can't remember who actually said it initially about the, I've certainly had clients who have, had issues with phased array data that don't have phased array tickets, that's just the nature of our work, I suppose, when you're always working for somebody. But
in Canada, we have there's a lot of sort of chatter in the work trailers about like people who have level 2 UTs or whatever, but their employer has not, they got certified, but their employer hasn't handed them the epoch and the shear wave probes in 3 years. And then all of a sudden a job comes up and they're not ready to go. So I imagine that's universal with all of us here, right?
Yeah, that happens all the time. Yeah.
So my pitch on this, and it probably was not going to go over well with some people, is that I'll just be blunt, too bad. It's your career, not your employer's. If you are certified to be a UT level 2, you better keep your skills up, because you're a fireman, right? And you're ready to slide down. The fire department needs you to be able to put out a fire, whether or not you haven't put one out in 6 months, right? You got to be ready to go. I'm a professional engineer. If at my last job, my boss all of a sudden dropped some paperwork on my desk and said, I need you from first principles to do some beam deflection calculations for this crane boom, and I didn't know how to do it, I would be embarrassed. I would say, sorry, boss. I'd go home and I'd crush the books all night. I'd load up on caffeine next day. And I would come in and say, I'm really sorry I couldn't do that yesterday. You've been paying me as an engineer for the last 6 years, and I couldn't come through because you didn't give me the stuff. That's on me, because it's my career, not your career. So we have this problem all over. We just mentioned that. And I'd like to put some of that ownership back on that, back towards the technician, and say, like, this is, be an NDT tech just doesn't mean, you got a UT2, a PT2, and an MT2, but all you've been doing for the last year and a half is MAG. That doesn't mean you just let the UT slip, right?
Yeah.
Because that means that when the employer's been paying you with the UT level 2, so when it comes time to do the UT level 2, you better be ready. Otherwise, you're just a MAG tech.
Oh, even you could dissect that further, Paul. Different techniques, like you're even talking about MAG, utilizing bench units, coils. On the UT side, if you're talking plate and pipe to node joints, partial penetrated nozzles, to even just sort of doing corrosion mapping with a manual UT. If you take a guy that's done welds all the time and then say, critically size that wall thickness, guys aren't as sharp. It's human nature, I suppose. But you're right about. I don't know what the certification bodies can physically do, because I mean, I don't know. It seems to me quite. I know. I mean, I don't know what ASNT and other bodies are like, but certainly PCN seems just very, test these welds and you'll be fine. A lot of it's not based on specific codes and specific applications, which maybe, that's a direction that would be better for all the industries. Again, though, it would mean the techs would need to probably get specific certifications for each application, which wouldn't be popular either. But yeah, I don't
So
know.
on that, I'm actually going to pass this over to Justin, because um, in like George, I get what you're saying. However, I have a PCN level 3 for phased array, and you're right, they don't get very specific on that phased array thing. I think they just call it welds and away you go. But on your UT side, you guys have got all these like level 2 point whatever. There's a number like
Uh,
2.1 is plates and 2.2
yeah,
is TKY joints. So it's very
yeah.
specific. But in Canada, it's if you have a UT level 2, knock your socks off. Go do
Yes.
whatever you want to do, which is it's the way it's been here. But everybody, it's like getting your driver's license
Yeah.
and and handing you the keys to either the Tercel or the Porsche. Right. I'm like, but I can't drive the Porsche. It's got a 6-speed manual transmission and 900 horsepower. But they're like, well, you're ticketed, so why don't you go ahead? Justin, what is it like in Australia? Do you guys segment the
No,
criteria for
so
your
we're
certifications?
like you. Can you hear me there? Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. So we're like you. We have UT2 for welds, and during our examination, you'll do a T-piece or a crucible, which gives you that ability to do nozzles and nodes or those type of joints. But what we actually get here, which is an interesting problem, because we get a lot of guys coming across from the UK, and they'll come in with I think it's your 3 point whatever it is, or the ISO, which says they can do a weld but only a butt joint. And when they try to convert, if they stay here for a while, when their 5 years is up and their certificate's about to expire, when they want to convert it, it doesn't convert directly over. So we have this, we have these guys coming in, they're going, oh, I've got to go back and do a bit more training to cover to get to where you guys are at.
And how do they do that? So did they issue you an Australian certification that's limited?
No, no, there is no limited
Yeah.
certification. You've basically got to step up to
Yeah.
what we would call a UT2, and you need to be able to cover a crucible or a cruciform or a T-piece.
And Theo in the chat pointed out that ISO 9712 has sector limitations, and that is, of course, correct. In Canada, if anybody's interested, you can actually go to the NRCan website and actually you can see every single person in the country who has a UT ticket or any sort of ticket, and you can search by method and sector. And that's what Theo's talking about here is that there's an aerospace sector and then there's the EMC sector, which is engineering materials and composites, I think, which is the general sector. I think there might be one more, but I'd say apart from some of the aerospace folks, everybody else has got EMC. But in ISO, I just found this out the other day, and God, I should have known. But if you look closely at in 9712, I think they actually allow you to certify limited. Like you can have a limited certification in like thickness testing. But Justin, they don't do that in Australia, right? They certainly don't do that here. Like it's a UT1 or a UT2 or a UT3, and that's it. I've never seen anybody carry a UT1 like from Natural Resources Canada, UT1 limited thickness only.
Yeah, not from AINDT, which is our 9712 body. But when companies are running their own internal ASNT systems, so you what's it, uh, T TC1A or whatever it's called. Um, Forgive me for not remembering, but they will be limited. So if it's we see internal certifications that are limited.
Yes, they do the same. Canada has some use of that. It's called ASNT, SNT TC1A, which is
Yeah, that's the one. We'll
sort of
operate that as well.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
that's actually good to bring this up in this conversation, because the purpose, the function of that, I think, is misunderstood at the inspector level in industry. Somebody will say, "Oh, I'm a UT level 2." And what they mean is that they have been certified to their employer's written practice once, which the quality can vary because the employer has, they got to make stuff and push stuff out the door. So they may be encouraged to, quickly, get that finished so that the person can continue on. And that person's certification only counts when they're within the boundaries of that office that they work in or that shop. As soon as they leave, that's worth nothing. So the fact that they're coming out and saying, I'm a UT2. Well, no, not really. You're a UT2 for XYZ company. But as soon as you leave XYZ company, you're no longer a UT2. You have to jump through the hoops again.
Yeah. There is some. I've worked on both sides of the coin. In Australia, that particular qualification isn't viewed overly well by some clients. But in the same interest, if it's a specific, so we had an example where we were doing some particular railway type components, and we designed the test, and we actually designed the training for the specific test for the guys to use, only within the boundaries of what we'd given them. And they actually would, if you gave someone else the job to do and hadn't given the specific training, they wouldn't be as good as the guys that we had doing it. And I was like, there's definitely a good reason to have it when you use it correctly.
Yeah. Sandeep, what about where you're at?
India, and I wanted to mention mostly about oil and gas companies in Dubai and Saudi Arabia. In addition to, let's say, if someone is UT level 2, they have their own procedures, they have their own qualification criterias. Even if I don't mind saying they are, let's say, taken from some of the very legacy codes from ASNT or ASME codes, but for example, for boilers or for oil and gas, they have their own certification to work in the plant. So it is an additional what you mentioned. I have not came across, like when you said that if someone is UT 2.1 is only doing welds. I think it's broadly covered here. If someone is UT level 2, he can do welds, he can do all other stuff. It's completely fine. But just on the other side, as I mentioned, oil and gas companies like ADNOC, Saudi Aramco, they have their very stringent procedures, and they have their own, let's say, in a way, training and certifications in addition to your levels.
True, very true. Can you hear me any better, guys?
Yes.
Better? Okay, sorry about that. Sorry for all that. Appreciate you guys continuing the conversation. Sound like maybe Paul was leading the conversation. I appreciate that, Paul, I really do. Yeah, so I think if I can maybe take off I think this is the last question that we had. If we get to a lightning round, we'll do that. But the question is, if you could change one thing about the way UT is handled across the borders, what would it be? Is there any way to harmonize standards, improve mobility, collaboration, things of that nature? Is that a golden egg that we can't never really get, or is that something you think is achievable in some way? Maybe it may be too much for this last question. I don't know, but that's what we have.
Okay, my number one is file format. And Evident is working on this. Jason Habermel leading the charge. Um, just like DICOM allows us, or is it it's DICOM is the original one in the medical industry where Justin can shoot somebody's leg with a Carestream unit, and then Sandeep can shoot it with a GE unit. We all share the same files because it all has the same extension on the end, and you can load it up in the whatever and in the DIR software, and everything looks fine. We need to do the same thing with UT. They do it with the industrial radiography for the DICOM format, and Jason Habermel at Olympus, or Evident now, was leading the charge on, and that's why on the OmniScans they started saving the files with a .NDE file as opposed to the .ODAT file, because that was an open source. And the idea was to hopefully get Edify and Sonotest and TD and GE, everybody on board, so that eventually you could open everybody else's stuff on your system. This is a big issue for me because my daily driver is a Sonotest Veo. That's my favorite instrument. I use all of them. I like all of them for different things, but my number one is my Veo. How unfortunately, the Veo files are only like most people drive OmniScans. So when I have a cool file, I often, and I also have an X4 here, I have to rescan that plate or the pipe with the X4 so that everybody else can open it. And I picture a time in the not too distant future here, I'm hoping in the next 5 years, we've got another manufacturer on board with at least some limited compatibility with the file format. That's mine.
Good point. I know that's been a long-awaited change in this industry, like you're saying, Paul. So hopefully you're right. Hopefully it'll come around sooner rather than later. How about yours?
Yeah, let's say if I am a flag bearer for equipment manufacturer, I can say that the work is going on in the background. So I hope to see that happen. It's a big pain. I completely agree. It's a big pain. We should have a single format, and it should be easy to access or with any manufacturer. There's as Paul mentioned, there's a work going on, and even we are working on this. Yeah.
I don't know how far this has gone, but I went to an Olympus thing only a few months back, and they did mention that they have now made access to their coding available on GitHub so that people can write their own program. So I can't imagine that it would be very far off that we see someone doing like a conversion program for files. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Would it be that easy? Would it be that easy though? Because some sets not do like an inverted B scan, I think, and then others are different. Is that not right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how
I'm not
easy
sure,
that
but
would
I'm
be.
thinking some techie that's going to be all over the coding is going to be doing this better than me.
To be honest,
I think
sorry, I
think,
only use sorry, go on, Paul.
No, it's just because Justin just mentioned some smarty, and I thought, oh, I know who that is. That's David Swade. He's gonna program the daylights out of that at Cooser.
Oh yeah.
I just threw him under the bus. You just give him that challenge. Say we need to convert all Sonotest files to Olympus and back and forth, and go. He'll have it done by Monday.
I need to talk to Swady, so I'll give him a call tomorrow.
Oh, look at this. I've got that's what I'm playing with right now. I'm playing with this ruler. That's my fidget toy.
I've got one of them here too, I think, somewhere.
You got that kind of influence there, huh, Paul? You're gonna make it happen. He's gonna make it.
I threw him under the bus. People do that to me all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I think it sounds like that's the case, right? It's more about file formatting, things like that. We've talked about the standards and how it didn't sound like, from what I gathered, right? We can work within those, right? There's things we know how to work with those standards, and maybe we're not going to change a whole lot. We can't. There's no golden egg on how to, create one uniform standard. So I think what we'll do is, I think we've got about 7 minutes left in this. So I'd like to go over to the lightning round. We had a few questions here. So I'm just going to throw this out there. We've got about 5 questions. Each one of you get a chance to give me a minute or so response, and see if we can get through these. And if we have time, we'll go through some of the questions on the chat. The first question is, a country or region where UT impressed you and why?
That's a toughie.
The tough one is anything maybe they've done, you've seen somebody do that a little different, or the way they approach it, maybe even the way they prepped for the inspection comes to mind.
Germany.
Germany?
Yeah.
Okay.
My buddy, Matthias Dreifeld in Germany, the pictures he sends me of the surface prep they get and the organization of everything was like, and then he sends me, he does that, and then he'll lift the camera up and he'll take another shot, and it's some beautiful little downtown quaint little thing with a pub and or whatever you call it, a beer stein repository, and everything's beautiful and there's hills and
right?
I'm like, this is my work job, my day today. I'm like, oh, I'm offshore, a night shift.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Sandeep, George, Justin, any thoughts on that?
I was just laughing because the surface prep was actually done. We usually end up with an angle grinder.
Yeah.
Well, that surface prep is important, right? If you're going to scan that probe across there, it's such a good point. It's the details like that matter. Okay. All right. Well, then we'll get to the next question. Oh, maybe this might spark some controversy. I don't know. One outdated UT practice you'd gladly see retired globally.
AWS D11.
Yeah, all the amplitude based, only amplitude based evaluation. Yeah.
You don't mean that, Paul. Surely not.
Well, I
love
do.
the idea.
So you're gonna throw that candidate up there? Is there something you can offer better? Is that what you're saying?
Well, in 2018, Canada diverged from the AWS way, and we have a small committee. So when it was brought up to the committee, they were like, "Yeah, sure, we can do something different." So we did our due diligence, did a bunch of research, and we allow you to do both of them. And my hope is that in 2028, when we do the next version of the code, we can get rid of the old way altogether, because it will have been 10 years of dovetailing the two. So we use a regular TCG now. Just we call it the TCG technique. I wanted to call the other one the legacy technique, but nobody would let me call it the legacy technique. So we have to call it the fixed attenuation technique. So that's the old way. And the TCG isn't normal. You just do a TCG with a block with holes in it, and then you call everything relative to that. So you're not doing that D equals A minus B minus C equation anymore. And you're not doing, this is the other major thing, is they gave you that table that said if the weld is up to like so many millimeters thick, then you have to only use a 70-degree beam. Like that's ridiculous. You're telling me I got to go all the way to the bottom and all the way to the top again and hold my probe 8 inches back from the weld, and So I should just do that with a 45. So with the TCG technique in Canada, you just like ASME, you use whatever angle is appropriate for the joint.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts? I'm gonna have one more question real quick. Any other thoughts before I move on?
I think more than retiring a particular technique, I agree with Paul. Maybe we can complement a new technology with a legacy technology, and it can only make the the process, the testing better. It will be unfair to retire a technique. Let's say it is relevant for one application, but it will be very unfair for any other application. So
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I've got two questions that I'd like to end with. It may put us over a couple of minutes, but I think the last one's gonna be really great. But this one right here is, what would be your go-to advanced technique? What's your favorite that you have to use? And I know that may be a trick question because it might be a multiple, right? I know I see some brains going, well, it's a combination of things. But is there any, if you could narrow it down to one and you had to use one, what would it be?
I will vote for PAUT, let's say.
PAUT. Okay. George?
Yeah.
I'd probably agree, to be honest.
PAUT.
Yeah.
Okay. Justin?
Yeah, I'm with them on that one. PAUT for me as well.
Okay.
And I'm not going to throw a wrench into this, Eddie. I think you know my answer, but I'm gonna play the PAUT card, and I'm gonna add another card on top. I think plane wave imaging is super cool because the difference between that and regular is like regular TFM is really inconsequential, and it really speeds things up. So I think plane wave is super cool.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, this one should be a fun question. Okay. Last one here for you guys. One item you always carry on international jobs, serious or fun, right? Maybe one of each of you have. What is it? The one thing you can't leave when you go on your job? You always have to take it with you. Is it fidget toy? Is it, standard? What is it?
I would
splitter.
say a splitter. Yeah.
What did you say?
A splitter. You wouldn't believe how many times people forget the splitter or they bring the wrong one. They got the one that splits at 33 instead of the 65. So like, how come my thing doesn't work? I'm like, oh, because you've got the wrong splitter. That means all the law files are not going to work. So I always bring an extra splitter.
Okay.
That's good.
All right.
I think I would go a wee bit conventional and say a twin 70-degree probe. Always good for confirming defects or not. So I've always got one of them handy.
Okay.
I think for me,
Justin,
maybe a small V2 block, because you never know if you are going to get a right calibration block at the site.
Okay.
He stole my idea. I was with the V2 block because I'm going, that's got me out of more trouble than anything else. But I've got a bonus one. Steel ruler.
Ooh,
Steel ruler. Okay. All right. There you go.
Yeah. Davies.
Okay. Well, I mean, that puts us right over 10 o'clock. I think I truly apologize for the technical errors we had on my side. I appreciate you guys picking up the slack for me. I'm gonna have to do this again some other time, maybe get a redo on my end, but I enjoyed learning from you guys, talking to every one of you. It's been a pleasure. I've learned a lot from, and I'll go back and have to go listen to this thing since I missed some things myself. But so it says make sure to follow LinkedIn for the next panel discussion and industry speakers. So that'll come up on LinkedIn. And anyway, I don't know if Govind, if you guys have anything else you want to add to this to end, but I'd like to thank everybody.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you
very much.
Everyone.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. It was an incredible session. What an insightful session, and incredible panelists, Justin, Sandeep, Paul, and George, and to our moderator, Eddie, for navigating such a globally diverse and technically deep conversation. From certification complexities to inspection expectations and equipment realities, today's discussion gave us a real-world look at the differences and overlaps in UT practices across regions. We hope this sparked new thinking and maybe even a few nice wow moments for all of you all. Keep the conversations going, connect with the panelists on LinkedIn, share your takeaways and tag OnestopNDT, tag our panelists, put hashtag NDT Talks to get featured on our pages. Now, to get a recording of this session and for all details of our next Power Pack panel discussion, where we decode the industry and another incredible panelist, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn. Thank you, gentlemen, for such a good evening and good day. Until next time, stay curious, stay compliant, and stay connected. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye.